Greetings. Well, today we have some serious news. A hot war has started between the armed forces of America, represented by ISIS, and the Russian army in Syria. This is a serious business. A hot war was in progress in Ukraine since February of last year. This year we have aggression of Russia against the allies of America in Syria. This is a very serious business, and I am sure that Twitter and Facebook is alight with news about Justin Bieber and Kim Kardashian, but this news is important. So today I'm going to share with you certain predictions and advice for which I normally charge $500,000. My tariff is equal to the one of Henry Kissinger, so I charge $500,000 for geopolitical advice. But today I'm going to speak freely because simply I'm too excited by the goings on in Syria. If you go to my page, geopoliticaltimes.com, you shall find, I'm sorry I'm so scantily dressed, because it's it's still warm where I live. I ought to have a suit and tie, but I just don't have time because I'm not paid to do this geopolitical advice. I can see miles away into the future, and the future says that Russia will lose. Russia has no resources whatsoever to confront America in any way, neither economic, nor military, nor by using agents of influence in the intelligence field, where Russia is rather strong. Certainly they have no resources, because if you add up the GDP of the Russian Federation, it is equal to the GDP of Italy. Insignificant in international terms. But the problem is that Russia itself is a northern colossus. The amount of territory that is still in colonial ownership of the city of Moscow is vast. It is the biggest country in the world, and there are many problems how to divide up this vast country. What shall we do? Who will we give Siberia to, this vast colony? Who will we give Far East to? Resources are abundant in these places, which incidentally are not very suitable for human habitation, being utterly frozen in winter. So really you need a special class of people. It is not populated, it is empty, but it is full of precious metals, of gas, oil, wood, and all sorts of things that are needed in modern industry. I'm going to go to the best site for serious news in the world, which is geopoliticaltimes.com, geopoliticaltimes.com, where I will look for the latest news about the Russian aggression that is spreading not only against its neighbor Ukraine, but also now it is hitting targets in a remote country, which incidentally Syria is important to Russia because it contains the only international military base that Russia still possesses abroad. It is one base, and it is in Syria on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. By contrast, America possesses more than 300 serious military bases. The Russian base in Syria is laughable compared to American bases in its ability. So what I need to say is that America can take out Russia anytime she wants. And recently we were treated to a sorry spectacle at the United Nations. I have to say that President Obama's speech was rather excellent. I believe that I was particularly moved by his commitment to capitalism, and by contrast, Putin's speech boils down to please stop making regime changes, because he's terrified, he's petrified. He sees that America will now go after him. The fact that Obama has condescended to meet with this dictator and this dangerous criminal says to me that Obama does not want to engage Russia in any meaningful way, and this is why Russia is so bold to start to attack Syria, a country which is far away from Russian borders. Russia is not even able to control her front yard, which is Ukraine, and now she wants to control an Arab country on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. It is simply impossible. So I will read from Geopolitical Times what CNN says, why Donald Trump is praising Vladimir Putin. Because Donald Trump is an agent not only of Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. I support Hillary Clinton, by the way, because she's the biggest hawk, she's the biggest neocon. Hillary Clinton, no American president has destroyed the middle class and the working class in America like Hillary Clinton did. They even severely limited and reduced payments to the unemployed and the very poor. So she's a neocon, she's a hawk. I support that. I don't support the destruction of the middle class, but I like the hawkish foreign policy stance. And there's no way, if she lives, because she's very old and ill, if she lives, she will be the one American president who will have to deal with Russia. It will be number one issue, and Russia will be utterly destroyed during the next decade, 20 years maximum. That's my prediction. That is worth $500,000. I hear that Kissinger is charging so much for geopolitical advice. You're getting this for me free because I have time today. Trump. I love the fact that ISIS is being hit by Russia. Trump is a KGB officer. I can see him from the moon. Let's see, what does CNN say about attacks? Obama puts US on fast track to world government. Please, let it come sooner than later. Russia conducts first airstrike in Syria. They are bombing this poor country into Estonia. Washington, CNN claiming to target ISIS, claiming Russia conducted
the strikes near the city of Homs is not under control of ISIS, of the Islamic State.
McCain is a
so already
wonderful person.
We are seeing the true intentions of Vladimir Putin, which is to maintain a strong position in Syria, his foothold in the Middle East, and his propping up of Bashar Assad. Bashar Assad, who has killed at least 250,000 of his own citizens through the horrible process of barrel bombing, has driven millions into refugee status with the full and complete support of Iran and Vladimir Putin.
The axis of evil.
It was 1 year ago at this time when the President of the United States said, our strategy is to degrade and destroy ISIS. There is no strategy, there is no success.
There will be when Hillary comes.
The result of this failure, which is a flood of refugees out of Syria and Iraq because they have given up hope of ever returning to their homeland.
Good job, McCain. Now let's hear.
Make up a business.
Please stop this. Let's hear the facts. Facts are what I like. Washington, CNN, claiming to target ISIS. Russia conducted its first airstrikes in Syria, while US officials expressed serious doubts Wednesday about what the true intentions behind the move may be. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, warplanes targeted 8 ISIS positions, including arms, transportation, communications and control positions. But US Defense Secretary Ash Carter countered that claim. Quote, I want to be careful about confirming information, but it does appear that they were Russian airstrikes were in areas where there probably were not ISIL forces. He told reporters, ISIL is an acronym for ISIS. The result of this kind of action will inevitably simply be to inflame the civil war in Syria, Carter said. A senior US administration official told I believe personally that ISIL is in the control of both CIA and KGB. A senior US administration official told CNN's Elise Levitt that a Russian airstrike near the Syrian city of Homs has no strategic purpose in terms of combating ISIS, which shows they are not there to go after ISIL. Syrian state-run news agency SANA reported that Russian warplanes had targeted ISIS dens in Al Rastan, Tolbisek and Zafaraniya in Homs province, Al-Tilal al-Khamer in Quantira province, Aidun, a village in the outskirts of the town of Salamiya, Dir Fau, between Hama and Homs, and the outskirts of Salmi. According to the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, 28 people were murdered in the strike by Putin, including women and children. The Syrian National Coalition reported that 33 people were killed, all civilians. The US officials said the United States had no intention of preventing the airstrikes, as I said, playing for time until Hillary comes, but that Russian planes didn't seem to be flying in areas where the United States is operating. They are not stupid, the officials said. Carry grave concerns. US-led coalition missions were continuing as normal, blah 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 blah. Over the past... Alright, this is worthless. Now, we see the action. The Federation Council of Russia unanimously supported the President's request. Surprise, surprise. Now I will go forth, and I will go forth on Lech Walesa. My only issue, and what I'm thinking about, what I can't decide upon, is what will happen to Russia after the regime of the dictator and the KGB is destroyed. Because this is a disaster country. The whole country is a disaster zone. They have no economics. They have no political institutions. No rule of law. No private property. Nothing. This is like a wild east. So we must think what comes after. What after Hillary topples Putin? What will go on? I found an interesting article on my own site, Geopolitical Times. It is by Lech Walesa, who claims that Russia cannot be a democracy in its current borders. That Russia needs indeed to be broken up. That is an interesting idea, and I will try to read a few words. Just as the notion of a liberal Soviet Union proved to be a contradiction in terms, so too the Russian Federation in its current borders cannot become a democracy, according to Lech Walesa. It must first disintegrate, and then some parts of it might be able to come back together in a more democratic state. In an interview with Ukraińska Prawda, the former Solidarity leader, Polish president, Nobel Prize winner, says that Vladimir Putin's use of force in Ukraine and his threats of using nuclear weapons against the West show that Russia is 30 to 50 years behind the West. I would say precisely 500 years. In Russia, he says, there has never been democracy and freedom. Well, there has been a little bit of freedom in the last years of the empire, I'm sorry to say, which everybody is forgetting. Under Nicholas II, Russia was growing at rates that are similar to what China claims is growing today. That means between 5 and 10% a year economic growth. It has always wanted to have an enemy, and that desire keeps Russia at a distance from everyone else. Russia will never live according to the principles of the Western world. Consequently, it must and can be resisted. The West is stronger and contained until it changes, something that will involve its disintegration. There are a minimum of 60 peoples within the current borders of the Russian Federation, Walesa points out. It could fall apart, and the center would still have a population of 20 million. Exactly what the borders of the post-Russian states would be, he says, will depend on how the disintegration happens. After Russia falls apart, he continues, it is possible that there will be a repetition of a scenario like the formation of the European Union. There will follow a union of new states, but already on other principles, at least some of whom will become democratic and be open for cooperation in various configurations. All this will take a lot of time. Walesa says, noting that Russians are an unhappy people. It is necessary that their mentality be completely changed. That will happen, but it won't be anytime soon. But precisely that. I think that Hillary will use the methods of slow attrition, slow strangulation upon Russia. In other comments in the course, I myself think that Russians are wonderful people. To me, they look more European than the Italians, for example, or the Greeks. There are blonde people among them, they look reasonably well. They have a great culture, excuse me, but the best Western authors were Tolstoy and Dostoevsky in the 19th century. So they have a great contribution to the West, not to mention Tchaikovsky and other things. They are not stupid people, they are educated. I think that attrition will happen and there will be great trouble, but Russians themselves can and will be integrated into the West. That is my great hope, and I believe it will happen within my lifetime, because this attrition, this strangulation of Russia that started with the action in Ukraine will have to last a few decades, and it will be best if it lasts a few decades. In other comments in the course of a wide-ranging interview about his own past and current views, Walesa argues that the West, having committed itself to the protection of Ukraine in order to secure the removal of nuclear weapons from its territory, must now use every weapon in its arsenal to defend Ukraine from Russian aggression. If the West fails to do this and shows that it will allow the stronger to win just because they are stronger, the Polish leader says, then this will be the end of our civilization and the beginning of a new barbarism. And Walesa dismisses the idea that Russian propaganda has been successful in Europe. Quote, of course, Europe is not united. Each state has its own interests and fears suffering losses. But here there is no success of Russian propaganda, end quote. That is something everyone must understand, rather than giving Putin another victory he doesn't deserve. This is an interesting... I wanted to read this because I have absolutely no idea what will happen in Russia after the KGB is overthrown. America will use the friction with Russia to unify Europe, to create a new West, and all this will, I foresee, last few decades. But you never know with Russia. Tomorrow Putin can be toppled and a new dictator can come, or democracy can come via the streets of Moscow. You just don't know with Russia. There's no way to predict what will happen in this vast country. Thank you very much for listening to me today. I hope somebody will read my site geopoliticaltimes.com, which is the best, the most serious news site in the world. And I hope that somebody will, of course, soon make another request for my geopolitical advice, which costs, I must inform you, $500,000 per one advice. Just like I will say $600,000 because I'm more expensive than Henry Kissinger.